Hi, everyone out there in Bulldog and Bourbon world. I'm so excited to be here with a new friend that I've made. She was introduced to me relatively recently, and we just only had one phone call, but right away, I think we could tell that we were kindred spirits. And I'm so excited to have her on video today and to share a little bit with you all how great she is, how amazing she is, and the amazing sort of lifestyle that she has decided was the best way for her to live her life. So without further ado, I want to introduce Gina Ferrara. Hi, Gina. How are you?
Hello. Good. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, you and I've had a really short conversation before, but we just, I think, really quickly realized
Clicked.
we have very similar life philosophies, and
Yeah.
philosophy that I think our community within Bulldog and Bourbon would really love to hear about, and maybe share with their friends and family as well. So I wanted to have you on here, just to learn more about, how you came to decide that this is the right way for you to live your life.
Yeah.
But if you could start off with just sharing a little bit about your background, we'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So I grew up in Northern Illinois, very, average lifestyle. I was an only child until I was about 10, and then my sister was born. And then 3 years later, my brother was born. So it was kind of interesting to be a lot older when my siblings were around. So it was hard for me to leave right away when I went to college. So I actually stayed in Illinois for 2 years and I got my associate's degree there. And it was really great to just be home with them at like really multiple years of their life. And then I went on to Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and got my marketing degree. And living in the dairy state, it's an interesting thing to live here. And I'll touch on that later as to how my lifestyle kind of it's
Mhm.
changed and how being here either helped or didn't help. But, now I've just started a business with my fiance, David, high school sweetheart. We met when we were 16. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit, grew up and kind of stayed in the same area. And
That's great. I know you know this, but I lived in Chicago for a little while, and I just love that Midwest. Like everyone is just so nice, the hospitality. But
yeah.
yeah, when I was living there, and this was, gosh, 6, 8 years ago, probably.
Mm,
Even then the food scene was getting more and more diverse. There's a lot more options. But like I feel like is the truth in the rest of the US and maybe even the world, it's that, people were still sort of meat and potatoes. That was their meal.
yeah.
And they had meat, 3 meals a day and a big nice steak and potatoes or for
Yeah.
so I'm really interested, because you mentioned you lived dairy state pretty much all your life. Like, how,
Hmm.
at what age did you kind of become more aware of like veganism and how did you decide to make that change?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because it was a slower process, I think, than most. So I was about 20 when I started just looking at different health options in terms of eating, and I had already been a part of PETA, which is the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, and for some reason I was so gung-ho about everything except the piece of veganism. I thought to myself, like, I grew up eating this, how is it wrong? I really didn't see the issue until I really took the initiative to be an environmentalist. And that in part with, my love for animals and how I was already kind of an activist for them, I felt like I was almost lying to myself to say that
Mm,
it was okay.
right.
And so it was a big moment like I said, when I was about 20, where it was just like, I can't say one thing, and especially now just try and, be an environmentalist and ignore the effects that animal agriculture has. And really, it's not the, okay, well, animals, are here and we should eat them. It's that we're breeding them to eat at this point. It's at the rate, that we're killing and eating. And it's to get that dollar hamburger at McDonald's. It's not to that small farm and you raise it yourself and you do that whole thing. So it's just changed into a different world now. And I think that a lot of people just need to open their mind to how, the effect of animal agriculture can have if they're an environmentalist, because that for me was really when it all changed. And so we gave up red meat, and that was kind of for about a year. We thought we were doing great. We felt great. We didn't have that like groggy feeling after we ate anymore. But then we started to give up dairy about a year later. And then we watched What the Health and Forks Over Knives. I'm not sure if you've seen those, but it went cold turkey after that. We gave up absolutely anything that we were still eating, any, chicken or fish here and there, and all of the dairy, we just gave it all up. So that was about 4 years ago now.
Wow. That's impressive because, I feel like people sort of out of sight, out of mind, right? Especially culturally, we've always growing up that if that's how you're taught, meat is the way to go. Even for myself, like my family, right? When my husband and I sort of shared with our family, like, hey, we've gone vegetarian and vegan, or I'm pescatarian, but my husband is vegan. The first question we got was, how do you get your protein? Like people just, that's not the way that they were taught. Right. So the educational component is really important. And I love that, because you've always sort of had it in the back of your mind, and then you've actually sort of, I wouldn't know if converted is the right word, but, then David kind of bought into it as well, because he started being more educated and about all of that and the health benefits. And so he thought, this was a good lifestyle change for me too. And I love that it's sort of a domino effect. Like the more of us who become sort of educated about it and aware about it, the more that we can sort of, share with other people and maybe influence their thought to, if it's not like going cold turkey, like you guys are so impressive going cold turkey, but even if it's just, meatless Mondays or eating one vegan meal a day, like that will make a big impact right there. Right. So how has this journey been for you two and, your friends and family? Were they supportive or how was that?
That's a great question, because really I'd say yes and no. They're very supportive of our lifestyle doing it, but not so much for themselves. So it can be kind of tricky when they're like, oh yeah, that's so great. I'm glad you're feeling so much better, as they're shoveling a steak in their mouth. So it's like, it's a little bit of a give and take, because I love the support, but obviously it's still hard for us to then see the people that we love continuing to consume so much of the dairy and the meat. And for David, like we said, he was more on the health aspect. Like for him, of course, he loves animals and all of that, but to him, it was once it affected his health, then that really gave him the motivation. And for me, having the environment and just my compassion for animals being more of the stronger reasons, kind of having all three of those reasons tied together, it's like a force to be reckoned with when we talk to people. Because once you have more than one reason, it just makes it all the more stronger to motivate you to keep up that lifestyle. Because it's not a diet. That's the biggest thing that I try to tell people is a diet is something that you might try for a short period and it might not work, it might work, but you tend to give it up. A lifestyle is really something that you just convert everything and anything that you do. So, I mean, like one of our friends said, hey, I went vegan. And she said, but not for the food, just my hair products. And I was like, hey, that's a step. That's a step, Right. Because like you said, with the education, there are literally animal products in our shampoos, in our body washes. And you're like, what? Why? Right. So little things like that, just along our journey we've seen, little flowers bloom after we've talked to people about different things and different reasons that have brought us to the lifestyle.
Oh, that is amazing to hear, because it really is becoming aware of it and then looking at the products in the store before you buy it, right? Just to see, does it have that little bunny on it to show that it was not tested on animals? Does it have animal products in it? What exactly are we consuming, putting on our skin, in our hair, putting into our bodies? What are we eating? Like all of that takes time, maybe research, but that awareness is that first key. Like you said so beautifully, it is planting that seed and then having a little blooming. That's amazing. So what suggestion, and I'm sure you've met plenty of people who are like just vehemently against veganism, changing their lifestyle, changing their diet, so what suggestions do you have for those kind of people?
So I guess there really is a level of how against it they are. And what I've come across is that typically the people who get almost angry or offended that you would suggest such a lifestyle, they're typically just defending the fact that they grew up a certain way. Maybe they're thinking about, how their grandma cooked for them all their life, or their mom. So they don't want to associate that of being wrong. And it isn't wrong. And that's the thing, because, my brother is actually allergic to all dairy. So it was a lot easier for me as well, because now him being almost 12, for the past 12 years, I've been reading the back of labels for him. So it got a lot easier for me.
Gotcha.
So that was something that I kind of just tried to share with people, is like, try to see it from a different perspective. And rather than feeling like you're wrong and you need to change, just realize that maybe there's some new information out there. Open your mind to the facts and how, animal agriculture can affect the environment, how the animals are really treated. I mean, if you see what cows have to go through and the tears that they cry, you don't want to put that into your body. And so really it's just being open-minded, looking at what it is and not saying, oh, I don't want to see that, but still eating it for dinner. It's really just try to small steps as much as you can, just like my friend. Maybe it's not the food, but you start looking at labels for your shampoo or your body lotion or the soap you even use, different things like that. So that would kind of just be my suggestion, is small steps, and just try to change your perspective about it. Like, pretend that you couldn't eat dairy, because there are many people out there that just have an allergy to it, and then look for the alternatives. That would be my main suggestion.
Yeah, that's great. I think in anything in life, it is taking those, baby steps, right? For people who can go cold turkey, awesome. That's so great. Right. But for, I think, the majority of us, like myself, like it was a process for me, because I did grow up eating meat. And my family was, there was meat at dinner every time. And that's how we got our protein. That's what my parents knew. So like you said, it's not necessarily wrong. It's just sort of having that open mindset, kind of changing the way you see things, and then taking those baby steps, which is great. So, what suggestion do you have for people who are like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And I know but they haven't sort of taken that leap of faith yet to become vegan. You've mentioned a couple of books that you and David read that helped you guys sort of get into that mindset. Is there anything else that you would suggest?
I would suggest almost an exercise, like go through just some of the things that you love to eat, some of the things that you love to use, and write them down on a piece of paper, and then just keep a column next to it for an alternative. And so maybe, it's dairy milk, cashew milk, or almond milk. They're very creamy. And so if, someone likes the consistency of dairy milk because of its creamy, then there's an alternative for that. Soy milk is a little more watery. People don't like that. So just giving that exercise to yourself to say, like, okay, this is what I like, and here's an alternative, or maybe 5 alternatives for it. And then just using the internet to your advantage. I mean, there are tons and tons of organizations, including yours, who just really preach that, compassion over cruelty. And that's really the bottom line that it comes to. And then again, with those other reasons of your health and the environment and just the treatment of the animals and things, just start with the things that you do and small changes that you can make on just a daily basis. And once you start to feel the way you feel after, and you start to see the effects that it does have, I think that your mindset kind of changes on its own. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've talked about sort of how things are currently, but I know this topic is very passionate for you. You've done a lot of research. How do you feel, or what do you see as the future of veganism?
So I think that, what's interesting is that a lot of people feel like, oh, this new vegan thing. But I think really it's just the internet that is almost mass marketed what it is to be the lifestyle of it. Because if you think back to, Gandhi was a vegan, Einstein was a vegan. They didn't have the internet to look up how to do that or anything like that. So there was something obviously even way back then that it had a place. And so now that we do have, you know, the internet and just people's stories and all of the good things that can come out of it, and just the change that people are trying to make, especially the younger generation, is all about positive change.
Yes.
I see that really changing the way that vegan is seen, and not so much as like, oh, you tree huggers, you know, it'll really be seen as something that is bigger than ourselves. Like, we're not doing this just for our health. We're not doing it just for the animals. Like, we're really doing this to save our planet. And when you see it at that level, I see it being bigger than just, you know, a plant-based way of eating. I really do see it being something that people adopt in, you know, many different levels. Maybe it's not like me where everything that I buy and eat and wear is vegan, but maybe it's just something. And that, honestly, the thought that, you know, somebody doing just one thing means nothing, we have to squash that, because doing just one thing really does make a difference.
Yes, I totally agree. And people are surprised. I would, you know, you've mentioned baby steps. You just try it. Don't knock it till you try it. You know, like go, if you have no idea what you're going to eat for dinner tonight, go, use the internet, like you said, look for a vegetarian restaurant or even a vegan restaurant if it's available, and go try it out, because people are surprised at how yummy it tastes. You know, it's not that whole, like, it's not cardboard. It doesn't taste like cardboard anymore. The industry has come a long way in terms of the food. It's made, and it's healthy for you. It's filling. You still get all the proteins and the vitamins and the minerals, and it tastes good. And for me, like, I have a sweet tooth. I love vegan desserts more than regular desserts because it's not as sweet, but it's still it's just so tasty and yummy. So I totally agree with you. So for a lot of people that I don't know if you've had this experience as well, but you know, when I meet people and they're like, oh, you're what? You don't eat meat? Veganism, like, ew. And then I just ask them, like, have you ever tried it? And they're like, no. So what are you against? You don't even know what you're really against. So
exactly. I agree with that.
Yeah, taking those little baby steps. And like you said, if it's just, you know, choosing one meal of the day where you're not eating any meat, that's a huge step in itself. If you have meatless Mondays for your family, that's a huge step. And I totally agree with you. We shouldn't discount these little things that we're doing, because it does build on each other, and you start to realize you feel better when you're after meatless Mondays. You wake up less groggy, all of that you mentioned, and then you decide, okay, maybe it's gonna be, you know, meatless Tuesdays as well, and meatless Wednesdays. So it really does add up.
Yeah. Definitely one testament, I think, to the whole thing is Tyson is coming out with a plant-based protein. I mean, Tyson, that's, you know, everyone always just sees them as the chicken, that Tyson chicken. You know, but now obviously they're hearing what the people want, and they also had an expose that happened about them, so that wasn't pretty for their business, but that just goes to show how much impact we can truly make about the companies that are producing the things that we want. We just have to tell them what we want. And by doing those small changes, that works. I think I just recently listened to a podcast, and it blew my mind. She said, this woman who started schools, and they're plant-based schools, and she said it was so hard to do that because so many parents were concerned that their kids would be malnourished. So she said, okay, it's just one meal a day. They're not here for breakfast and dinner. You can still feed them what you want for that, but for lunch, they're going to eat plant-based. And she did all the math with it. And so basically, if you just do one meal a day plant-based over the course of a year, you can essentially save the carbon emissions of a round trip from California to New York.
Wow.
I mean, it's like mind-blowing.
That is.
Just one meal a day over a course of a year, all those CO2 emissions, just not there.
That's incredible.
And so it blew my mind. So just some testaments, you know, there to where things are changing, and they're changing in big ways.
Absolutely. And to your point about, you know, a big company like Tyson investing in coming out with plant protein products, Carl's Jr., they're partnering up with Beyond Meat to have the Beyond Burger. Huge. And that might just, I believe that's nationwide now. You know, so to have Carl's Jr., which is a nationwide, it's a big burger chain, for them to come out with a Beyond Meat burger, which is delicious, because it's char grilled, right, on their, it's just, that's a huge thing to see. And you're so right that, you know, for us, like, where we have our power is where we decide to spend our money, right? Because that's how we tell companies and even politicians, like, you know, this is what we as a people are, that's what we care about. We want to have, you know, more plant-based options and, you know, less cruelty to farm animals. And the other thing is, I was reading Panda Express is coming out with 2 vegan options. I think their stir-fried, their noodles is going to be vegan now. And then they have like a tofu eggplant option.
Oh my gosh, yum.
Yes, right? Yum.
Yeah.
Taco Bell, it's very easy to just ask them not to put in, you know, you can make anything practically on their menu vegan. So there really are a lot of options out there. People just might not realize it.
Yeah, it's just not marketed as much,
True.
You know, and typically it's because it's not the main for a company. They don't make their money on the lettuce and the tomato and the pickles. They make their money on the meat, you know, but if you just tell them, well, no, this is what I want, then they have to change their whole organization. And really that just betters everything down the road.
Absolutely.
But you made a good point about, you know, just us and where we invest our money. And that really comes down to the business that David and I are in. You know, we're holistic financial planners, and we work with a lot of like-minded individuals. So typically it's a lot of people who give back in their careers. So, you know, therapists, doctors, chiropractors, people who are in it for other people, not for themselves so much. But on top of that, you know, when we're dealing with investments and things like that, you know, we want to make sure that people are supporting the right companies that they want to support. So we have that conversation with them. And so it really, it transfers into our career too, just all this passion that we have. And one big thing that we want to do is self-sustain our business so that we can step away down the road and also have a sanctuary. And I know we had a conversation where, you know, more people, the better. And the fact that, you know, somebody else has that dream, it's, you know, the universe is speaking to us, obviously. And that's just so amazing because, like we said, you know, an animal that's been captivated, like so many elephants just in the United States, they can't be released into the wild. So having a place to go for them is something that I've really, really taken to heart. And that's something that we actually have in our business plan. It's transparent on our business cards, on our website and everything like that. So yeah, that's just, we've intertwined, you know, our passions and our career just to make sure that every day we are doing what we say and what we want, you know, for the planet and things like that. So
amazing. I love it. I totally love what you and David stand for. You know, I know with your business, I think that was another connection that we had, that we were both entrepreneurs, besides our love of animals. But yeah, I totally love that, just how genuine you guys are and how you do want to help people with their finances. And like you said, you know, choosing to where you want to invest your money, to causes or to funds that reflect your philosophy. I think that's so cool. And so, you know, if people want to reach you guys somehow or check out your website, I think we'll put the link below. And so reach out to you for sure. And
just a little face to the names there.
Yes, perfect. Wonderful. You guys looking lovely. You and David. Awesome.
Thank you.
So we'll definitely put those links below, and you know, make sure that people who want to reach out to you guys know how to do that. Yeah, perfect. Great. Well, thank you, Gina, for talking with me. And I know that we've shared a lot of really great, you know, food for thought today. Yes. Definitely. Food for thought. Awesome. Thanks so much, Amber. Absolutely. I'll talk to you later. Talk soon. Bye.